the day I discovered the hidden danger. I'll never forget that day. It started like any other, a quiet morning, sunlight spilling through my bedroom window. I remember waking up feeling more sluggish than usual, as though I hadn't truly slept. My joints were aching, my head felt heavy, and I had this strange tightness in my chest. I chalked it up to a poor night's sleep or maybe just getting older. You know how it is, aches and pains that seem to come with the years. But that morning felt different. It wasn't just tiredness. It was something deeper. I shuffled out of bed and sat on the edge, rubbing my temples and wondering why I felt so off. That's when I noticed it. A faint, musty smell in the air. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but enough to make me pause. It wasn't the scent of dust or old wood. It was something else, something I couldn't quite place. But I brushed it off. After all, I told myself, I'd lived in this house for decades. What harm could a little mustiness do? As the day went on, though, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. My energy levels stayed low and I felt strangely irritable. I even snapped at my daughter over something trivial, which wasn't like me. By evening, a dull headache had set in, and my breathing felt a bit more labored than usual. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was just stress or maybe allergies, but the next morning it was worse. I woke up with a pounding headache, dizziness, and an unsettling sense of confusion. My vision blurred for a moment when I sat up. That strange smell was stronger now, more noticeable, more insistent, and my heart was racing. I felt like I was underwater, trying to think clearly but unable to. I stumbled into the kitchen, and as I reached for the kettle, my hand trembled. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a bad night's sleep. Something in my house was making me sick. I sat down, trying to calm myself, my mind racing through possibilities. Had I eaten something bad? Could it be a virus? Then, like a switch flicking on, I remembered something I'd read years ago about a silent killer that could invade homes without a trace. Carbon monoxide. My stomach twisted. Could that be it? Could there be a leak somewhere? The idea was terrifying, but it also made sense. Carbon monoxide is odorless and colorless, but it can cause flu-like symptoms, headaches, dizziness, and even confusion. And if it was carbon monoxide, I was lucky to wake up at all. I stood up, a wave of determination washing over me. I threw open the windows in every room, letting in fresh air. I called my daughter, telling her what was happening. "Get out of the house now," she said, her voice tight with worry. "I'll call the fire department." I grabbed my coat, my keys, and stepped outside into the crisp morning air, my head spinning but my lungs already feeling a bit clearer. Within minutes, the fire department arrived. They confirmed my fears. A faulty heater in my bedroom was leaking. Carbon monoxide. Enough to make me sick. Enough to be dangerous. They told me that if I'd stayed in that room for another day, or even another night, I might not have woken up at all. I stood there, shocked, as they vented the house and disconnected the heater. I felt a strange mix of fear, relief, and gratitude. Fear that I'd been so close to something fatal. Relief that I'd trusted my instincts and acted in time. Gratitude that I had people who cared, who helped, who got me through it. That evening, as I sat in my daughter's living room, wrapped in a blanket and sipping tea, I couldn't stop thinking about how close I'd come to disaster. I thought about all the mornings I'd woken up tired, all the headaches I'd ignored, all the times I'd chalked up discomfort to just getting older. I thought about how many other seniors might be doing the same, living with an invisible danger and not even knowing it. That night changed everything for me. I realized how easy it is to overlook the subtle signs, how easy it is to dismiss a headache, a bit of confusion, a strange smell, how easy it is to think, it's just aging. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes It's something far more serious. Something that can take your life quietly, without a sound. I promised myself that day that I wouldn't stay silent. That I'd share my story, no matter how uncomfortable or scary it was. Because, maybe, just maybe, it could help someone else recognize the danger before it's too late. I also promised myself that I'd never ignore my instincts again. If something feels wrong, whether it's a strange smell, an unusual symptom, or a gut feeling, I'll pay attention, I'll take action, and I'll make sure my home, my sanctuary, is truly safe. That day, the day I discovered the hidden danger, lurking in my bedroom, was a turning point. It woke me up, quite literally, to the risks that can hide in plain sight. And it taught me that being proactive about my health and safety isn't just smart, it's essential. The surprising way it affects sleep and health. After that terrifying morning, I couldn't help but reflect on all the subtle ways this silent killer had been affecting me without my realizing it. I had thought it was just poor sleep or the normal aches of aging, but once I learned about the carbon monoxide leak, everything started to make sense. Looking back, the signs were there. The fatigue wasn't just from tossing and turning. The headaches weren't just dehydration or stress. The slight dizziness, the moments of forgetfulness. I had been blaming them all on age or maybe just not getting enough rest. But the truth was far more sinister. I realized that for weeks, I'd been waking up groggy, with a heavy feeling in my head. Some mornings, it felt like I was swimming through fog. I would sit up in bed and feel lightheaded, almost as if I'd stood up too fast. I remember thinking, I must not be drinking enough water, or maybe I need to cut back on coffee. But no matter what I changed in my routine, the symptoms persisted. My sleep had become shallow and fragmented. I'd wake up several times a night, sometimes gasping for air or feeling anxious. There were nights I couldn't get comfortable, and mornings where I woke up feeling as though I hadn't slept at all. And yet, I didn't connect the dots. After all, what senior doesn't have sleep problems now and then? What struck me the most, though, was how the carbon monoxide had been subtly wearing down my body's ability to recover. It was as if my health had been on a slow, steady decline without my even noticing. My joints ached more than usual, and I often felt short of breath when climbing stairs. I'd chalked it up to getting older, but now I realized it was my body's response to being deprived of oxygen night after night. I later learned that carbon monoxide binds to hemoglobin in our blood, the same molecules that carry oxygen. When carbon monoxide enters the bloodstream, it prevents oxygen from being delivered to the body's tissues and organs. That's why I was waking up tired, why my muscles ached, why my head hurt. My body was essentially suffocating in slow motion every single night. The scariest part was how easily I had dismissed the symptoms. I told myself it was just aging, just normal wear and tear. I hadn't realized that my sleep, the very thing that's supposed to rejuvenate and heal the body, was actually making me sicker. And it wasn't just physical symptoms either. My mood had been off for weeks. I was irritable, anxious, and more forgetful than usual. I'd lose track of conversations, misplace items, and feel mentally sluggish. It was as though my mind was wrapped in a thick fog. I remember one day, I nearly left the stove on after making tea. My daughter noticed and gently scolded me, but I brushed it off. "I'm just distracted," I told her. But deep down, I was worried. I thought it was a sign of aging or maybe just too much on my mind. Little did I know, it was a warning sign. My brain wasn't getting enough oxygen, and the carbon monoxide was slowly impairing my cognitive function. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how insidious this danger was. It wasn't like a fire or a flood, something that forces you to act immediately. It was quiet, invisible, and all too easy to ignore. I wondered how many other seniors, like me, were waking up tired and achy, blaming it on age while an invisible danger seeped into their homes. That realization shook me to my core. I thought about all the times I'd woken up feeling like I was underwater, struggling to think clearly. I thought about the times I'd been short of breath climbing stairs. The times my head ached so badly I had to lie down in the middle of the day. I thought about the anxiety I couldn't explain, the irritability that wasn't like me, and I thought about how many nights I'd spent breathing in something I couldn't see or smell. It was a terrifying thought, but it also gave me clarity. I finally understood that sleep isn't just about resting, it's about healing. And when your sleep environment is compromised, when there's a hidden threat in the very air you breathe, the consequences can be devastating. That night, after the fire department had cleared my house and disconnected the faulty heater, I lay in my daughter's guest room, unable to sleep. Every sound made me jump. I kept imagining what might have happened if I hadn't noticed the signs when I did. I thought about how easily it could have gone unnoticed for weeks, months, or even longer. But amidst the fear, I also felt a sense of gratitude. I was grateful that I'd listened to my instincts, that I'd trusted that nagging feeling something wasn't right. I was grateful that my daughter had acted quickly and that the fire department had come to my aid, and I was grateful that I now had the knowledge to protect myself and others from this silent danger. The next morning, I sat down with a cup of tea and started writing a list. I listed every symptom I'd experienced, every change I'd noticed in my health and sleep patterns. I made a note to research carbon monoxide detectors and ways to ensure my home was safe. I realized that knowledge was power, and I wasn't going to let this experience fade into the background. I knew I needed to share this story, to warn others, to let them know that if they're waking up tired, achy, forgetful, or anxious, it might not just be old age. It might be something far more dangerous lurking in their bedrooms. The clues I missed, but you shouldn't. Looking back now, I can't help but feel a wave of disbelief at how many signs I ignored. The clues were there, staring me right in the face, yet I dismissed them one by one. It's unsettling to think how close I came to disaster because I brushed off those subtle warnings as nothing more than aging. One of the earliest clues was my increasing forgetfulness. At first, it was little things, misplacing my reading glasses, forgetting to take the tea off the stove, struggling to recall the name of a neighbor. I chalked it up to getting older. After all, isn't that what we're told? Senior moments, they call them. But this wasn't just occasional forgetfulness. I found myself losing track of conversations halfway through or repeating stories I'd told just days before. There were moments I'd stand in a room, trying to remember why I'd entered in the first place. It was frustrating and embarrassing, but I didn't think it was dangerous. I thought it was normal. Then there was the persistent, dull headache. It wasn't sharp or severe enough to alarm me, but it lingered like an unwelcome guest. I'd wake up with it, go to bed with it, and no amount of water, rest, or over-the-counter medicine seemed to make it go away. Some days were better than others, but the headache always hovered in the background. I blamed it on dehydration, maybe stress or tension, but the truth was that my brain was being starved of oxygen. Another clue was the tightness in my chest and the occasional shortness of breath. I noticed it when I climbed the stairs or carried groceries inside. I'd have to stop to catch my breath. Feeling a bit lightheaded, I figured it was my age catching up with me. I wasn't as active as I used to be, so maybe I was just out of shape. But in hindsight, this was my body signaling distress. The carbon monoxide in my bloodstream was preventing oxygen from reaching my muscles and organs, including my heart. It wasn't just age, it was danger. I also missed the changes in my mood. I found myself feeling more anxious and irritable, snapping at my daughter over trivial things or withdrawing from social activities. I thought I was just overwhelmed or perhaps experiencing a touch of seasonal sadness. But mood changes are a subtle symptom of carbon monoxide poisoning. My brain was struggling, and my emotions were paying the price. One of the more insidious clues was the decline in the quality of my sleep. I'd wake up multiple times a night, tossing and turning, feeling anxious for no reason. I'd wake up too early or struggle to fall asleep, and when morning came, I felt as though I hadn't slept at all. I blamed it on caffeine, on getting older, on stress. But now I know it was the silent killer disrupting my body's natural rhythms. And then, there was that musty, slightly metallic smell I noticed in my bedroom. It wasn't strong or overpowering, just a faint scent that lingered. I dismissed it as stale air or perhaps something from the heating system. I never considered that it could be a warning sign of a leak. After all, we're told that carbon monoxide is odorless. And while that's true, sometimes a failing appliance or furnace can emit other smells that hint at a bigger problem. I ignored that clue. The final, most obvious clue was the sudden worsening of my symptoms. That morning, when I woke up with a pounding headache, dizziness, and confusion, should have been a flashing red light. But even then, my first instinct was to explain it away. Maybe a bad night's sleep, a bit of dehydration, stress. It wasn't until my heart started racing and I felt truly unwell that the pieces finally clicked into place. I share all these details not to scare you, but to warn you. If you're waking up tired, experiencing headaches, feeling more irritable or forgetful than usual, or noticing changes in your breathing or heart rate, don't dismiss it as just getting older. It could be something far more serious, something invisible and dangerous. What's especially dangerous about carbon monoxide poisoning is how easily it can mimic other conditions. Fatigue, maybe it's anemia, headache, could be dehydration, shortness of breath, maybe a touch of asthma, mood changes, stress or aging. It's so easy to write these symptoms off, and that's exactly why it's called the silent killer. Another thing I regret is not having a carbon monoxide detector installed in my bedroom. I had one downstairs, near the kitchen, but I never thought to put one in the bedroom where I spent so many hours sleeping. I assumed that one detector was enough, but carbon monoxide is sneaky. It can seep into bedrooms, living rooms, basements, anywhere. And at night, when we're asleep, we're most vulnerable. I think about how lucky I was that day. Lucky that I recognized the danger in time, that I opened the windows and got out of the house, that my daughter called for help. But not everyone is so fortunate. Many seniors, living alone or with limited mobility, might not notice the clues until it's too late. That's why I'm sharing these details with you. I want you to recognize the clues I missed. I want you to trust your instincts. If something feels off, if you're waking up with unexplained symptoms, noticing odd smells, or just feeling off, don't ignore it. Take action. Check your home. Install carbon monoxide detectors in key areas, including your bedroom. Schedule regular maintenance for your appliances. Talk to your family. Your life could depend on it. I've come to realize that aging doesn't mean we have to accept feeling unwell. Sometimes it's not age at all, it's something else, something fixable. And knowing the clues can be the difference between waking up to a new day or not waking up at all. How I finally took action and changed everything. The realization that I had been living with a silent killer under my roof shook me to my core. I couldn't stop thinking about how close I had come to disaster. But here's the thing. I wasn't about to let fear paralyze me. Instead, I turned that fear into action. That very morning, after the fire department had given the all clear and left, I sat down with a notebook and made a plan. I knew I needed to reclaim control over my home and health. The first step was to understand exactly what had happened and how to make sure it would never happen again. The fire department explained that my old gas heater had developed a leak. Over time, it had begun to emit carbon monoxide, a colorless, odorless gas that can accumulate in enclosed spaces. I was horrified to learn that the heater had likely been leaking for weeks, maybe even months. I had no idea. My home, which I had always considered my safe haven, had turned into a ticking time bomb. So I made the decision to replace the heater immediately. I called a licensed technician and arranged for a complete inspection of all my gas appliances. I wasn't taking any chances. I even scheduled a full evaluation of my home's ventilation system. If carbon monoxide could build up once, it could happen again if I didn't take proactive steps. But I didn't stop there. I went to the hardware store that same day and bought multiple carbon monoxide detectors. Not just one for the hallway, but one for every bedroom, the living room, and near every gas appliance. I made sure they were high-quality detectors with loud alarms, and I tested each one. When I installed them, I felt an enormous weight lift off my shoulders. It was as though I was finally putting a protective shield around myself and my home. Also educated myself. I spent hours reading about carbon monoxide, how it forms, where it can come from, how to detect it, and most importantly, how to prevent it. I learned that not only gas heaters, but also gas stoves, fireplaces, water heaters, and even car engines in attached garages can be sources of carbon monoxide. I realized how much I had taken for granted, assuming that everything was safe just because it worked fine. Armed with this knowledge, I created a maintenance checklist for my home. Every few months, I would check the batteries in the detectors, test the alarms, and schedule inspections for my appliances. I even taught my daughter and grandkids how to recognize the signs of carbon monoxide exposure and what to do in case of an emergency. I wanted to make sure that not only my home was safe, but that they were protected too. One of the most profound changes was how I reclaimed my peace of mind. For weeks, I had been living with subtle anxiety, headaches, and fatigue. Once I addressed the carbon monoxide issue, I noticed a dramatic difference in my health. My headaches vanished, my energy levels returned, and my sleep improved. I woke up feeling refreshed, and my mind felt clearer than it had in months. It was as if I had been carrying a heavy weight without knowing it, and now it was finally lifted. But it wasn't just about fixing the immediate danger. I also took steps to make my home healthier overall. I invested in better air filters, improved ventilation, and added plants known for their air-purifying qualities. I created a habit of opening windows every day, even for just a few minutes, to let fresh air circulate. I also made sure to keep vents and flues clear of obstructions. These small changes made a big difference in the quality of the air I was breathing. Reflecting on the experience, I realized how close I had come to tragedy. If I had ignored the signs a day longer, if I had dismissed the symptoms as just getting older, I might not be here to share this story. But instead of letting fear take over, I transformed my fear into empowerment. I learned that taking action, prompt, decisive action, can not only save your own life but also inspire those around you. In the weeks following the incident, I became something of an advocate. I spoke to my neighbors about the importance of carbon monoxide detectors. I shared my story with friends at the senior center, urging them to check their appliances and install alarms. I even wrote a letter to the local newspaper, sharing my experience in hopes of raising awareness in the community. It felt good to know that I could use my story to help others avoid the same danger, and the changes weren't just physical, they were emotional and mental too. I felt a renewed sense of purpose and confidence. I was no longer a passive victim of circumstances. I was an informed, proactive homeowner. I felt stronger, more resilient, and more connected to my family and community. The experience reminded me that we're never too old to learn, adapt, and protect ourselves and those we love. One particularly touching moment came when my daughter visited a few weeks later. She noticed the new detectors, the improved air quality, and the changes I had made. She hugged me tightly and said, "Mom, I'm so proud of you. You've turned something scary into something powerful." That moment made every bit of effort worth it. I want everyone who hears this story to know that you have the power to make your home safe. You don't need to wait for a crisis. You don't need to be a victim of a silent killer. You can take steps today to protect yourself and your loved ones. Whether it's installing detectors, scheduling inspections, or simply being more aware of the signs, it all matters. As I sit here now, breathing deeply and feeling the crisp, clean air in my home, I feel a deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the chance to act. Gratitude for the knowledge I've gained. And gratitude for the opportunity to share this story so that others can learn from my experience. My personal advice for a safer, healthier home. After living through the terrifying experience of nearly falling victim to carbon monoxide poisoning, I knew I couldn't keep this hard-earned knowledge to myself. So, let me sit with you now, as if we're sharing a warm cup of tea in the comfort of my kitchen, and I'll give you my personal advice for creating a safer, healthier home, especially for seniors like you and me. The first and most important piece of advice is simple, but life-saving. Install carbon monoxide detectors in every key area of your home. I can't emphasize this enough. Don't just place one in the hallway and call it a day. Put them in every bedroom, near any gas appliance, in the basement if you have one, and even in the garage if it's attached to your house. Make sure they're high-quality models with loud alarms. And remember, carbon monoxide is sneaky. It doesn't rise or fall like smoke. It mixes evenly in the air, so detectors should be placed at about breathing level, on a shelf or table, not just near the floor. Also, don't forget to test the detectors regularly. I now check mine once a month, just like I do with my smoke detectors. Replace the batteries at least once a year, and don't assume they'll last forever. Most carbon monoxide detectors need to be replaced every 5 to 7 years, so checks. The manufacturer's recommendations. A simple test can mean the difference between a peaceful night's sleep and a disaster waiting to happen. Beyond detectors, take a good, hard look at your home's appliances and systems. If you use a gas stove, fireplace, furnace, or water heater, schedule regular maintenance. Have a certified technician check for leaks, blockages, or malfunctions. Don't ignore the little signs. If your pilot light is burning yellow instead of blue. If you smell something strange, if you notice soot buildup, call a professional immediately. Prevention is always better than a cure. If your home has an attached garage, never leave a car running inside, even for a few minutes. Carbon monoxide can seep into the house through tiny cracks and crevices, and it doesn't take long for levels to become dangerous. I make it a point to pull my car out of the garage before starting it, even on cold mornings. It's a small change that could save your life. Now let's talk about air quality. After my experience, I realized how much the air we breathe inside our homes impacts our health. I invested in HEPA air purifiers, especially for the bedroom, where I spend the most time. I added houseplants known for their air-purifying properties, like snake plants and peace lilies. I open the windows every day for at least 10 minutes, even in winter, to let fresh air in and circulate. You'd be amazed at how much better the air smells and feels. Proper ventilation is key. Make sure vents are clean and unblocked. If you use a gas dryer or stove, ensure that exhaust fans are working correctly and venting to the outside. I had my dryer vent cleaned, and the difference in both performance and air quality was noticeable. Another crucial step I've taken is to create an emergency plan. If a carbon monoxide alarm ever goes off, I know exactly what to do. Leave the house immediately, call emergency services, and wait for them to give the all clear. I keep emergency numbers posted by the phone and stored in my cell. I also shared the plan with my family, so everyone knows how to respond. But there's more to a safe and healthy home than just physical safety. It's about peace of mind and mental well-being. After going through this ordeal, I made changes that brought calm and clarity to my life. I decluttered my home, creating open, airy spaces that feel less stressful. I added cozy touches like soft lighting, comfortable chairs, and calming colors. I started practicing mindfulness and simple stretching exercises in the morning to begin the day with a clear mind. I also started paying attention to hydration and nutrition. It might sound unrelated, but when you're well hydrated and nourished, your body is better equipped to handle environmental stresses, including air quality. I make sure to drink plenty of water and include antioxidant-rich foods in my diet to support my health. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned is to listen to my body and trust my instincts. If something feels off, if I wake up feeling more tired than usual, if I notice headaches, dizziness, or shortness of breath, I don't brush it off as just getting older. I check the carbon monoxide detectors, inspect the appliances, and talk to my doctor if needed. You know your body better than anyone. Don't ignore it. I also encourage you to educate your loved ones. Talk to your family about carbon monoxide, safety. Show them where the detectors are, explain how they work, and review the emergency plan. If you have grandchildren or younger family members, make sure they know the basics. Awareness is the first line of defense. And here's something I wish I'd done earlier. Have regular home safety assessments. Some fire departments or local services offer free or low-cost safety checks for seniors. They'll inspect your appliances, check for hazards, and offer advice on improving safety. Take advantage of these resources. They're there to help you. Finally, remember that safety isn't a one-time thing. It's an ongoing practice. I now have reminders on my calendar for monthly checks, annual maintenance, and battery replacements. It's become part of my routine, like brushing my teeth or locking the doors at night. It gives me confidence and peace of mind. My home is no longer just a building where I sleep and eat. It's my sanctuary. It's where I feel safe, secure, and healthy. And I want you to have that same feeling. Take the steps today, big or small, to protect yourself and your loved ones. Because in the end, it's not just about surviving, it's about living well, with confidence and peace of mind.